I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Karen, could you do a roll call, please?
Melvoy Benson.
Here.
April Burnell.
Here.
Larry Cerisi.
Here.
Renee Cockrell. Janice DeFrancis.
Here.
Kimberly Page.
Here.
Douglas Roth.
Here.
William Brennan.
Here.
Okay. Before we discuss the calendar and the presentations, I just want to make a few comments in regards to how we're going to try to structure tonight's school committee. One is that we've been making attempts to have a public comment and not putting time limits on it. And we've found that, in reviewing the past few meetings, that it's very difficult to get through all of the agenda. And so we're asking that we're going to try to stay to the 3-minute timing. We're going to try to allow you to have a comment and make sure that we allow citizens' comments before we vote on any issues. And also that hopefully that we can continue to get through our agenda and be able to end the meeting at a reasonable time where we all can make some rational decisions and have rational discussion with that. So with that, I'm asking for the cooperation of everyone, and hopefully we'll get through a very productive and positive meeting. So thank you. And I'd like to just go into the calendars right now. Karen?
On Wednesday, June 11th, there will be Rhode Island Honor Society Night held at the high school at 7 p.m. On Friday, June 13th, there will be a policy subcommittee meeting. The time has been changed to 11 p.m. at the Central Administration Building. AM, excuse me. And on Saturday, the 14th, the class of 2008 will have the graduation ceremony at 11 a.m. at the URI Ryan Center. On the 16th, there's a CLAC meeting at Fishing Cove at 7 p.m. And on the 24th, there's a school committee business meeting at 7 p.m. at the Central Administration Building.
Thank you. Larry?
And just one additional item for calendars on this Thursday, which is the 12th, was a tentative 4 o'clock meeting at Town Hall for the Consolidation Subcommittee.
We have the opportunity this evening for some recognitions and presentations. The first one being the current wave recognition as the best high school newspaper in Rhode Island. And
Children weren't allowed to able to come today, but we said we would
We do have
mention
some students who just walked in.
are there some students here for the new wave? Current wave. New wave. Current. It's current and it's new.
Like a senior prom, to be honest with you.
Okay. Okay, then we want to congratulate them on that recognition. And also the high school symphonic band, won National Silver Medal recognition. Anyone here from the band?
Same prom.
or not. Yeah.
Same prom. Okay. All right.
Why is it that that's more important?
That's actually a good thing, then.
Yeah, it is.
It is.
Congratulations on both those accomplishments and to the teachers and staff supporting them also. And we have a Facilities Management and Planning Committee status report.
Good evening. Hello.
Yeah, I think
It is. Just speak into it.
that works.
Good evening.
Good evening, Dick.
When this was formed, we probably should have had an initial meeting between the committee and you folks, but that didn't happen. And that would have given us a little bit more guidance as to what you actually expected from the Facilities Management and Planning Committee. So we've kind of gone along and done a couple of things. One was to address the issue of Davisville Middle and Wickford Middle and what needed to be done, and trying to go forward with a recommendation for a possible future bond issue. The initial meeting, we determined that there was no way that we were going to be able to do a creditable job in trying to put a bond issue together for March so that it could be on the November general election. We decided that it didn't make a lot of sense to try and rehash the information that was given to us from RGB, which was already about 3.5 years old at that point in time, and that also was the same bond issue and information that was rejected by the voters at large the previous election. So what we have done in the interim was we have gone and the committee has looked at both of the middle schools with an eye looking towards how do we make them so that they can be somewhat equal, so that they can offer the programs that need to be offered, so that the children can get the education that they need to get based on the current and future standards. And we looked at how they differ, and also what things need to be done that probably should have been done several years ago, like having classrooms in restrooms that have been turned into classrooms. I mean, that really kind of says that we were going in the wrong direction. There's a lot of deferred maintenance that needs to be attended to. Shortly, we will have a report that will tell you what we feel should be done as a minimum to both of those schools. And it will reflect not only the needs for additional classroom space, a new entrance probably for Wickford Middle so that you have some security control that you don't have now, and making sure that the programs that need to be offered, that could be offered at Davisville, that can't be offered at Wickford, can now be offered to both schools, so that we have an opportunity to give the children a balanced education, and both schools will be giving the children the opportunities that they need to have. As far as the facilities and future planning, we've been waiting, and now still waiting, I guess, for a final answer on Wickford Elementary, and looking at the population, the enrollment population in the future years, 3, 5, 10 years out. We'll be able to look at and forecast a facilities plan that we'd like to present to you once the determination has been made whether or not Wickford Elementary will reopen as a school or not. It pretty much sums up what we've been doing since November. If you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them.
You said you're going to have a formal report out for us eventually?
I would expect that we have a meeting towards the end of this month where we hope to be able to finalize some things. In order for us to go forward with trying to put a bond together, we're going to need some assistance from the school committee to get an architect involved, because we're going to have to do some layouts and some drawings so that we can make a presentation to you, the school committee, and then hopefully then you can use it to go to the public and the town council looking for a bond issue. I can tell you that from what we have seen and the recommendations that have been made by the two principals, that it will not be anywhere near as grandiose, if you will, as the last bond issue request. It seems that, and I've asked this question of a few people who have been at Wickford Middle, that the RBG report reflected more of a wish list of a lot of people rather than the actual needs that we needed to provide. There are still some things that are coming forward that they feel will be needed in the bond issue that were included in the RGB report, but it's nowhere near as substantive as what RGB report reflected and our last bond issue.
Thank you.
Mr. Spencer?
First, Mr. Welch, I'd like to thank you for such an in-depth report and thank all of the committee. When you speak of bond issues, that you would want the school committee to work on after you get the full report, and we work together because it's way too late for a bond issue this year, and in case the citizens are thinking it would be in this election and come out like you said, I like your points, come out with something that wouldn't be a wish list but would be a need list for the school, and I just wanted to clarify that in case somebody missed that maybe a bond issue was coming up.
I would guess that maybe the earliest we could be to the public with a bond issue might be March or April of next year.
Yes. Yeah.
And although I would rather have it so that it isn't a special election to keep the cost down, we got to take care of the children and we got to take care of the schools. So that's unfortunate, but that's I think what the plan will have to be.
Well, thank you very much. You did an excellent job,
Yeah.
you and your committee.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for the effort and the time that you've put into the effort. Is this committee prepared to speak some formal basis to the school committee? I mean, do you want us to move to get that to the agenda? Is that something you want to have happen relatively soon, or does this fit that purpose, or should we schedule something?
I think at this point in time, we still have to have an agreement from the committee as to what we're going to recommend and put together a report so that we can then present it to the entire school committee. I tried to have this meeting because in the original charge, you were looking for a 6-month report, and because we met in November, we didn't do one in December because it was way too fresh, so I was just trying to keep to your agenda, but we hopefully will have a report to you soon, that then we can sit down and discuss it.
Thank you. Any other questions?
I'd just like to thank Mr. Welsh for his commitment and dedication to this committee and his leadership. He has made sure that he is at every meeting, that the minutes are complete, and that we know exactly when we leave one meeting what we're going to be doing at the next meeting, and I think that has helped to keep the meetings flowing. I think the scope of the work is much larger than anyone really anticipated it to be, and that is just not an easy task. So I thank you very much, and I thank all of the committee members. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay.
Did a good job, Dick.
I'm going to open this up now to citizens' comments. Please state your name.
Richard August, I'm a member of the Town Audit Committee. I'd just like to report to this committee that last night at the council meeting, the town council adopted by unanimous vote a whistleblower ordinance for the town. It differs slightly from that which was published in the newspapers last week with some minor editorial changes, and what I would propose to do is meet with the policy subcommittee on Friday, the 13th, which I hope is not a bad omen, at 11 o'clock. I'm going to try to get from the town clerk a final copy of that ordinance and certainly have it before the committee and your council. So hopefully you'll get it on the agenda for 24th for the vote of affirmation that we seem to have been talking about for 5 months. It's been kind of a tedious process, but I think the final product is well worth it, and I hope that we'll get your support.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dick.
Sure.
State your name.
Those of you who don't know, my name is Deborah Caramonte, and I am a co-chair of the QES PTO. But importantly more, I am a parent of a former, a present, and 3 future students at Quidnesset School. I'm here to speak on 2 topics concerning the Quidnesset Elementary School: the possible elimination of our principal and the potential renaming of our school to Suzanne Hensler Quidnesset Elementary School. While I have spoken before the Town Council on the renaming issue, I've never had the opportunity to formally speak before the North Kingstown School Committee, the elected body that is supposed to govern our schools, and the one that I feel really needs to act on this matter under law. I'd like to address the situation, offer an idea or two, and speak to the incredibly insensitive and poor process that the public has been subjected to by our elected officials. First, let me once again make it very clear that although we are opposed to the renaming of Quidnesset, we have nothing against Mrs. Hensler, her family, or her memory. We've heard from some people that the Hensler family has been somehow hurt through this discussion. We truly hope not. If that is true, we are sorry about that, and even more disappointed that we have been misrepresented as being insensitive to her memory. Perhaps it's fitting that this process, such as it was, has played out in debate before elected bodies, especially in our school committee, as that was how Representative Hensler earned her reputation as a leader and teacher. Mrs. Hensler operated and succeeded in an imperfect political environment. I would think she, above all, would grant us the space to have this discussion. So it's not the honor itself, but the form it takes that should have happily been up for discussion. Sadly, instead, a school full of parents that would like their school to remain unchanged have been pitted against a group of people who would like to honor one of North Kingstown's favored leaders. That has been the most awkward and unnecessary part of this whole deal. It is your responsibility as elected officials to manage that process so that everyone's opinion was honored. Through this whole naming debacle, I have been personally insulted, even called crazy, all because I dared to speak up for our school and what I believed in. It wasn't my honor that was tarnished, no, but I've been vilified by people who don't know me, and my reputation was threatened by political leaders. The QES community was subjected to a clearly political and arbitrary decision by the Town Council, while our school leadership, with the exception of Mr. Roth, sat and watched. We are now hearing from school committee members that this is a done deal, instead of finding the courage to tell us how you think. You were sitting back and hoping we would just go away and let it die. It doesn't get much worse, in my opinion, and the more you try to avoid the central issue here, leadership or lack of, the worse it looks. At least Mr. Roth has fought to have a reasonable and fair process put in place so all could be satisfied and Mrs. Hensler could be properly honored, but to no avail. We believe the school committee has to act to allow any name change to functionally take place. The council can demand what they want. The Democrat Town Committee can promise money. It's the school management that spends our money to make these things happen. There have been 3 different opinions issued by school and town lawyers. Mr. Robinson said that the authority was with the school committee. Ms. Carroll is saying that the authority is with the town and not the school committee, even though the law she cites specifically mentions the school committee. And Mr. Riley said that while the town could choose to name the building, he advised that they get the consent of the school committee to avoid legal action. 3 lawyers, 3 different opinions, and we're back to square one again, and that is your leadership. We did ask to make this issue on tonight's committee agenda, and we were told public comment was where we would start. Dr. DeFrancis told me yesterday when I met with her that the issue would make new business for the June 24th meeting, and for that I thank you. We don't believe our school should be renamed. All of our schools have been named for their neighborhoods. It's the Quidnesset neighborhood, not any one person or family's neighborhood. We think naming a part of the building, such as the gymnasium or library, or even renaming a town building or road for Mrs. Hensler, would be great and a bit more fitting for all she has done for the whole town of North Kingstown. We believe no school building should be renamed until there is process or policy in place that helps manage this process in a respectful way. You owe us and the whole town that process. Secondly, I would like to briefly address the whole shared principal issue. It is completely unacceptable that you would even consider having 2 elementary schools share a principal, and even more unacceptable that Mrs. Dennett could be removed from QES. She is one of the first to arrive at the school in the morning and the last to leave at night. Sometimes I receive emails from her 10, 11 o'clock. I've had the pleasure and good fortune of working side by side with Mrs. Dennett. She attends every event and truly has the children's best interest in mind when making any decisions concerning them or the school. The fact that Quidnesset School is once again a target for change hasn't escaped me, so I would like to take this opportunity to remind you that you are not the Whitford School Committee, the Davisville School Committee, or even the North Kingstown High School School Committee. You're the North Kingstown School Committee. You represent all of us, and we ask that you start acting like that. You need to fully explore all possible options and leave our principals where they belong, in our schools. Thank you.
Is there any other public comment?
Dick B. 5 Seagrass Way. Can you hear me? No. Can you hear me now? No. I can't solve the problem. I'd like to talk to the school committee this evening on something that may be before it this evening, and that is the contractual arrangements and for administrators, including secretaries. Having had some experience in the private sector, it's not done in the private sector. So I'd like to have you consider a few questions and answers to those questions before anybody votes affirmative or negative. But you should have the answers to these questions. What's the experience of other school districts in having contracts for people on the administration as low as secretaries? What are the pros and cons? Have they been discussed at open school committee meetings? Why are they being considered? Why are they being considered? Doesn't happen too many places. What direct experience can be cited from those school committee members that wish to vote in favor of these contracts? Do those personnel do they have direct impact to students? Answer that question is imperative. What alternatives have been explored? Lost training people, if we think their skills are going to be lost? What makes the school department so special versus the town government in North Kingstown that doesn't have such contracts? What does private industry do? Well, I can tell you, not this. This is the same action by the same-minded people that has gotten this state into a $450 million structural deficit. Think about that. If we thought the problem was in the State House and in Providence, it may not be. It may be at this level. What are the effects of the town government / school department consolidation efforts for like job requirements? Have they been discussed? It sounds as if, just a personal observation, that some school committee members want to have a big giveaway protection program before their term expires. For those people who fit that category, please feel free to dig into your own pockets before you dig into the taxpayers' pockets. Have you ever thought on the Republican and Democrat side what effect it might have on those running for office, both town council and school committee? I can give you only my opinion, but I think it will have a negative effect. Your party will be affected by the vote that you cast.
Yes, ma'am.
Where does it start? Janitors? 3-year contracts? Paraprofessionals? Coaches? Is there any end to this foolishness? Thank you.
Kathleen Brown, 160 Prospect. I really wanted to address something that's related to new business, item 5, configuration, that's on the agenda tonight. And that is that I've read in the papers over the last few weeks comments by one school committee member, Mr. Roth, regarding Whitford Elementary building and the vote that was taken here, and how perhaps we would have to close another school in another part of town, and alluding to the fact that this was discussed here at a school committee meeting or in any way a recommendation of the configuration committee. And I just wanted to be very clear that was not part of any of the recommendations made by the configuration committee and has not been discussed here. Now, maybe it will come up tonight when you finally get to the issue of configuration, but to have those kind of statements in the paper representing what happened during a school committee meeting, I think has been very misleading. So I just really wanted to go on record and hopefully correct anyone if they were unaware of that. The other thing I would like to mention is unfinished business policies, GCB policy. I saw it outside today. It was not available for public review earlier this week. I tried to stop in to look at it, and it was not available. I emailed and asked for a copy. I did not get a reply or a copy of that policy ahead of time. And as with any new changes, I would hope that it's thoroughly discussed here. And as you said, Dr. Francis, not at the wee hours of the morning when everyone can no longer think clearly. I think it's a great first step towards getting rid of very confusing 4 lengthy policies, trying to consolidate it if I'm quickly reading through it and understanding it correctly. So I think it's a great first step, but I would encourage you all to really vet it and let the public have an opportunity to digest it as well. As Mr. B was just saying, I think we have to really think down the road what kind of encumbrance is the word, I can't think of the correct word, what it is that we're really going to be giving away. So I would like to see a lot of discussion on that. It says unfinished business. The GCP policies, from my recollection, haven't been discussed since last November. So to consider them unfinished and have action tonight, I think might be hasty. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further comments?
Both of my children go to Forest Park Elementary School. Your name, please? Oh, I'm sorry, Christine Barrett. I live here in North Kingston, taxpayer. And one of my questions is if we do the pairing for the principals and there is an issue that comes up as far as safety goes, who's going to protect my child if there's no principal in that school? I don't know if you have a plan set up for that, but that's my biggest fear. I teach in Warwick, and we've had real lockdowns, and thank God the principal was in the building, especially with little children. And I do teach second grade, and I've experienced the fear that happens when reality hits, and I know we live here in North Kingstown, and everything is a little bit different than the northern part of the state, but it could happen, and I just don't know if you've considered the safety plan as far as not having a leader in the building, or who would take the place of a leader, who has the certification and the good decision-making skills to make a decision at that point. I just don't know if anyone has brought that up yet. I know I'm coming in a little late. I haven't been able to come to the meetings, but that's one of my biggest concerns at this point is the safety issue of the children if you're going to pair the principals. it's a scary situation, and I've been through it, and you definitely need someone there who's in leadership who can handle that situation. So that's one of the questions that I'm asking you. Maybe I can give someone an email, and they can give an email back to me, and if you have any ideas on that, because at this point, I'm not quite sure. Not having someone who is in leadership can make a good decision when you have to coordinate with police and possibly fire and gas leak, any of that stuff, those silly things, sometimes they happen. Who's going to help those kids, and who's going to make that decision? That's my biggest fear. So I will give someone my email, or I'll get in touch with you guys, and okay.
To Karen.
Okay, thank you.
Sharon Schubert, 530 Kentucky. I just wanted to comment on the budget in general and some correspondence that I've seen and had with some of the school committee members about the gap that still exists and some areas that have not been touched, quote unquote, and athletics and special education do come to mind. There was a discussion about $50,000 being taken from athletics, but special ed, again, has not really been vetted, and I do agree that every area should be looked at and should be vetted. Special education is slightly different, though, because I think it is need-driven and should be really looked at from top to bottom, be part of the strategic plan. The committee that I was part of, that Dr. Fear started with the special education teachers, paraprofessionals, I think that should continue in order to find the real direction. What expenses do we truly incur here? And I think I would welcome as a parent that topic on a agenda from soup to nuts with the special education as the absolute topic. I think that in order to make any cuts to look at for efficiency and consolidation, you really have to do that. You can't just lop off $50,000 from special education, because it really is, I think, driven by the needs of the students. So before you say, well, we'll take 50 from athletics and 50 from special education, you really have to look at both, but special education in particular. So I really would welcome as a parent that look at special education. What does it truly cost, and what can we do more efficiently? Who can we consolidate with? What is our strategic plan? What's our long-range plan in 5 years going to look like before we cut? Because I'm sure there is something that we could do more efficiently in both those departments. Thank you.
Mrs. Hubert.
Yes.
I have a question for Mrs. Hubert. Mrs. Hubert, have you received official word that $50,000 was coming from special education?
No, it was just some discussion in email and correspondence that I had seen. I think at the last school committee meeting, there was some discussion of $50,000 from athletics, but I know that special education is another area that hasn't had a cut, so that was just a term that I had seen, but I haven't heard any official word now. So I'm saying, before you do that officially, could you discuss it?
Okay, thank you, because special education is student need driven.
Right.
And we'll have to give that considerable thought.
Thank you, Sean.
Jim McGuinn, 412 Chimney Rock. As far as the budget goes, keep on saying this, if you look at the budget, there was actually an increase in athletics in the initial budget of something like $62,000, so that $50,000 is really now an increase of $12,000. And I'd be happy to sit down with anyone and go over the budget figures. We did an APRA, and we asked for how many students in each program and what the budgets were. We weren't given that. That's more than a work product. That used to be part of the budget before we had an athletic director and an assistant. The other thing and I think the special ed group would be very interested in that, because is it Is it principals that you're sharing between schools? Is it special ed, or is it athletics? People should just know. I mean, that's an honest question, and it should have an honest and complete answer, instead of pieces. And the other thing is that on the consent agenda, the policies, administrative contract approval, this has been discussed before. This is something that impacts consolidation. This is something that if you start giving 3-year contracts, you are actually putting structural barriers in the budget. This pales to, keeping Whitford L open, giving multi-year contracts for essentially what are at-will employees. One of the things that was discussed last fall was certification. This is an educational institution, and the difference between certified staff and non-certified staff needs to be considered in that, and to try to get people to be certified. There's a number of people that have been discussed for contracts that aren't certified. And as we go into consolidation, and you start moving, there's a big disparity between what town officials are being paid for the same job as school officials, and I think you have to look at that and deal with it as you look at your budgets.
Thank you. Is that...
Here, school committee members. My name is Bonnie Roy. I am here as a parent and a very active member of the Stony Lane Parent-Teacher Organization. I have been the president of the organization for the past 2 years, vice president prior to that, and sadly saying that I'll be leaving my role as president, but with new members coming in. I'm here because I have questions about the current situations with the principals and why those contracts haven't been renewed, or what is going on to get those contracts renewed. In addition to that, I haven't really been up on as who's sharing what principal or any of that talk. All I'm here to tell you this evening is that we have the best principal and we need her at Stony Lane. Joan Crothers has been an integral part of the school. She's been the principal since my children have been there, since 2002. I have worked very closely with her. She is the backbone of that school, and we would really love to see her back at Stony Lane. Thank you.
Ms. Wright, thank you for your comments. Just to clarify, one quick point is, as far as renewal of the principal's contracts, the contracts have never previously existed, so this would be the first time that they're being provided, or proposed to be provided, contracts.
Okay.
So it's not that contracts have expired and we have yet to renew them. This is brand new. So I just want to clarify that one point.
My understanding is that as of, I guess, June 30th, there are no principals in the school unless a contract agreement is reached.
Right.
And I think there have been discussions in the paper and everywhere about a possible principal sharing, and I think I've seen this principal, I've seen principals in other schools. That job is way too big to share.
Absolutely. Thank you.
You're welcome.
No?
I just wanted to say to Mrs. Roy, and the other parents that are here concerning the rumors of shared principals, you're very enlightening to me, because as a school committee member, I haven't been officially told, or has it been discussed with me, or my input. Thank you.
Adrienne Downing. First of all, I'd like to say I had no intention to speak tonight until I heard some of the conversation going on, and I wouldn't want to do any of your jobs. I think it's pretty difficult to have to sit there and decide what to cut and what not to cut. But as a parent of both a special education child and a child that's in athletics at the high school, I see the importance in both programs, and I feel like athletics is an easy target because You look at kids with special ed needs, and it's really difficult to take stuff away from them. But it's also very difficult to look kids in the eye that are in athletics that are keeping them out of drugs and alcohol. And, 7 of the top 10 graduating students from North Kingstown are athletes. And I just want you to think before you make another athletic cut, because when he was talking about it being a budget increase, it's not. Because the athletic department has taken cuts year after year for the last couple years. That's just bringing them back to where they should be. And I'll tell you that, and I'm not taking anything away from Jerry Foley, but he doesn't know my daughter's name, and she's in the top 15% of her class, but I can tell you that Keith Kenyon knows who she is, and he talks to her almost on a daily basis. And so I just want you to take that into consideration before you make another cut to the athletic budget. Because I know my special ed son, he's protected by law. But my daughter, we chose North Kingstown based on their athletics and their academics, and I wanted to have both, because without those, she would be a wallflower in that school, and she wouldn't be talking to anybody. And I'm not sure that she would say that she had a great high school experience. Thank you.
Okay, I think we're all set. Okay, we're going to do routine items. Did you want to say?
Yeah, she does. She's coming.
My name is Rhonda Barner. I also had no intentions of getting up here because I probably will get emotional. I am a taxpayer, I am a special ed para, and I also am a mother of athletes at the high school. I know things are tough. I get it. I also know that probably everyone in this room has also faced difficult financial situations. And you do what you have to do. You tighten your belt, you put a smile on your face, and you do what you have to do. I don't understand why everybody isn't being affected so far. I think that we are a team, and that we need to act like a team, and we need to cut where we need to cut. That being said, again, I'm a parent of athletes at the high school. My children also play in these specialized teams that I pay a lot of money for. I don't have a problem with, and I don't think a lot of the other parents would have a problem with, being asked to contribute for my son to play on the football team and the basketball team and the baseball team. I would rather have to come up with that money or have a program, which I think the boosters would be part of, for the children that can't afford it, to help pay for those athletes that are deserving but can't financially afford it. I have a really hard time understanding that I'm here tonight again thinking that I might be losing my job. That's okay. But when there's other places that could be cut, I think that's a tragedy. I really, really do. And for me and a lot of the other fellow paras that are in this room, we're the ones that are taking care of these children. What is going to happen on day one of the next school year when you realize, what did we do? We need these people. My message is that I think that everything should be looked at, and maybe some parents should be asked, are you willing to pay for these extracurricular activities? And I would bet you that more than half would say absolutely. Well, how much do you need? How much do I need to pay for my son to play? Or my daughter, or whatever. That's what I have to say. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. I think we're all set. All right. Routine items, so correspondence.
I'll make a comment later on that.
I have correspondence. Yes, I received from Norma Kaiser, our
the results of the New England Regionals, and our North Kingstown High School Concert Choir and String Ensemble performed the other weekend at the Festival of Music in New England Regional Competition, where they competed against Massachusetts, Connecticut, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and New York. And the concert choir won first place in the AA division and also the 2008 Best Overall Choir Award. The string ensemble won second place in the AA division. So, and also, because of what they've done, next year the concert choir is invited to Carnegie Hall to sing on May 22nd in 2009. So, congratulations. I'd like to say congratulations to our men's lacrosse team for their state championship. And I know there were a couple teams in the finals, the baseball and the women's softball. So I say congratulations to them for doing as well as they did this year. And the other piece of correspondence I have is from Wickford Middle School, in which the South County Hospital Auxiliary and Friends of the Art has invited 33 of our Wickford Middle School to have their art in the reception area. I will quickly read over their names, since there are 33. Sarah Curvin, Alexandra Barton, Heather Jackson, Christopher Sharp, Jack Calbry, Catherine McCrory, Beth Matera, Hope Johnson, Sally Dean, Jennifer Matera, Abby Winter, Corinne Barless, Elizabeth Marshall, Molly Keefe, Taylor Butler, Catherine Rue, Daryl Lamore, Colin Vincent, Matthew Johnson, Connor Todd, Kelsey Spiltonic, Christina Allabrook, Haley Wilson, Holly Clark, Lisa Robbins, Michaela Pollum, Mikhail Freeman, Connor McMillan, Kevin Connolly, Nolan Ripa, James Eckhoff, and Joanna Chatham. Congratulations for your artwork being displayed. So I'll pass that correspondence over. I did get correspondence from Mr. August detailing as to, that I'll pass into, just about the whistleblower for the rest of the committee to read. And that's it. Thank you. Joe?
Yeah, just want to make sure everyone knows. I think everyone had it in the packet. I just want to make the public knows. Friday night, June 13th, 5 to 7:30 at Davisville L. It's luau time. Make sure everybody knows. Looks like there's a raffle that night as well. Ice cream sundaes for folks in attendance. Looks like committee members have been invited. I'm going to try to get over there. I like a good luau, so I'm going to try to be there.
No?
Not correspondence, but I'll have to reach back and get this. And I'm sure all the committee members attended Willy Wonka at Knesset Elementary School. And I see the principal is here, and I've heard some parents. And I want you to know that I've been to many performances at PPAC, and those kids at Knesset were superb. And I just can't say enough for them. And another thing that I noticed, and it should be of interest to all of us on the school committee, that when parents and a school work together, you get positive results. And there was over 500 parents, grandparents, sisters, and brothers at that performance. And I understand that the afternoons were as great. And I'd like to also congratulate Mr. Roth for donating 2 Willy Wonka books and a great big donation for Knesset. They recognized it the other night, and thank you for giving it as a school committee. And also, I received letters, one concerning, I will not have it put into the record because we've changed the manner of that, but I will mention it. I received letters concerning the paras and what you would, and also a letter concerning the contracts that we are working on tonight. And it was directed to me personal, so I'll keep it personal and convey their thoughts. Thank you.
Any other correspondence?
I just want to acknowledge a letter I received from a student questioning our decisions regarding the dance drama. Okay. Okay, disclosure of executive session votes. Karen?
There was an executive session held earlier tonight. A motion was made to send a letter of supporting the disciplinary action of the superintendent, and it was voted unanimously except for one. There were 4 votes yes, 1 no. There was a motion to seal the minutes of that executive session meeting, unanimously approved. There was a motion to adjourn out of executive session, unanimously approved, and a motion to recess the executive session, unanimously approved.
Maybe I'm being a little oversensitive, but I want to make sure that that's a disciplinary action by the superintendent, not of the superintendent.
Right.
Just make sure the action's good.
Move on to the consent agenda. Do I have anyone exempting any items on the consent agenda?
Number D.
What was that, Mel?
E.
All of E?
She said D.
D.
D is in Delta.
And all of E, now that you mentioned.
And all of E?
Yes.
April, did you have something? Sure. She got it. Okay, D and E. Anyone else?
Wait a minute.
Larry?
D.
C, as in Charlie.
C?
Yep, and G as in golf.
Thank you, Larry.
Something like that.
Turn it over.
Okay.
For G.
I have a motion on,
Yeah, Madam Chair, I'll make a motion to accept the consent agenda with those items previously exempted.
Second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
C, D, E.
Motion passes.
Under
Can't
E,
hear.
do we have 1 and 2?
We have exempted is 3C, 1 and 2, D, 1 and 2, E, all of E. We have exempted G.
We approved F. I think that was the action just took.
Sorry, I voted yes on that too then. I was unclear as to what was left.
There's a revised agenda F is a duplicate.
Madam Chair.
Larry?
Karen?
Yes.
Just for the record, I understand that F has been removed and also E4 has been removed? Okay, so those are removed from the agenda.
Yes, both of those.
Thank you.
So we really...
Madam Chair, then I would say that the motion we took to approve is irrelevant. It's useless, so I would
Everything was exempted.
just have that noted for the record, I guess.
Well, you approved A and B.
You approved A and B.
What happened to,
A
and B were
they're on the new agenda?
consent, started with C.
You're right. You
You're
approved
right.
nothing. You approved nothing.
We approved nothing. So we have to go through the
You
consent
approved nothing.
agenda, but you're right, Ms. Paul.
I really need some support here.
That was my motion. Bad motion. Bad motion.
I need some. Okay, can we please go to C?
C is the minutes from the May 13th work section, C1. Just a couple of discrepancies that I'd like to note. Actually, more or less typo errors. On page 4, after D, personnel items, Karen, if I remember correctly, it was, my statement was that the stipends are not budgeted from the general fund. So, it says are budgeted from the general fund. My statement was actually that they are not budgeted from the general fund. And also that the following sentence reads, summer camps are paid from the summer camp account. summer camp stipends is what I believe I had mentioned. So, stipends are paid from the summer camp account, which just says summer camps.
Stomach can't stipend you want to do.
Yeah. So if there are no objections from the committee, I would make a motion to approve those minutes with the amendments that I just mentioned.
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Motion passes.
Secondly, on C2, which is the minutes from the May 30th business meeting, also on page 4, number 3, 1, 2, 3, fourth line from the top, it says that I suggest that Dr. Fair and Mrs. Benson be the school representatives. It was actually Dr. DeFrancis and Mrs. Benson be the school committee representatives. So if there are no objections, I'll make a motion to approve those minutes with that amendment.
Second?
Second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. And we have D1.
I have a question for Mr. Draper. Is that how many bids did you receive on the roof for Wickford Middle School?
Five bids total.
5 bids total. Is this the lowest in between?
This would be the lowest bidder.
Are you satisfied with the lowest bidder? How far out of the ballpark is he from the rest?
His bid was quite favorable. In concert with the architect, we checked references. We had no reason to disqualify this bidder.
We did get approval from the architect to use this bid.
Yes.
Who's the architect?
Tom Leonardo and Associates.
Okay, thank you. I'd like for the records to reflect that because we've had problems in the past before your arrival and nothing to do with you. But these things, because when something happened and you go back, usually the architect is gone out of business or nobody can find them. So that was a word of precaution. Sometimes the cheapest isn't the best, but you have the approval of the architect and his name, and it will be part of the record. Thank you.
I'll move to accept D.
I second.
So D1.
Yeah, I just had a question that, on here it says that the funding source is the CIP funds. What part of the capital improvement plan funds? I mean, is that kind of...
That would be a capital reserve.
Okay, so it's capital reserve part of the CIP plan. Okay, it just really wasn't clear on there. It just says CIP funds.
Yeah, I should have specified relative to the budget, it's capital reserve.
Okay, it's capital reserve money paying for this. Okay, thank you.
I'll motion to accept D1.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. D2?
Should I add a question?
Uh,
Ned, just a quick question regarding D2. I know a while back in the consolidation subcommittee, we had a discussion about purchasing supplies, consolidating the purchasing of supplies with the school department, with the municipality, to try to buy in bulk and receive a reduced cost by purchasing in bulk. And to be perfectly honest with you, I forgot where we left off with that. We were already doing that. I think that's what we... Yeah, I believe practice that we've already entered into previously. In many instances, that's correct. I can say in this instance, our purchasing was focused pretty much on our needs. Okay. There were various quality tests and that kind of thing relative to the different products and what we need to do with them. Okay. That doesn't mean that the town couldn't take advantage of our bidding on this case, but we use much more than they would. Okay. Thank you, Nick. I'm sorry.
No?
Directed to Mr. Draper. Mr. Draper, you used the term purchased on our needs. If we are going to have a strong consolidation between the town and the schools for purchasing, I would suggest that the two of you, Public Works and someone from the town, get together, because I see many things that's kind of would be a little block to consolidation in certain areas. And I think we're going to need it more than ever, because everyone's sitting out there. Every time you pass a gas station, you see the price go up. And before we get I would like to hold that until you bring us a report back from the town as related to the purchasing of custodial goods. And my reason for saying that is you're going to have shared people. You got down here to lay off 2 custodians, and with all of these diseases that's going around from tomatoes on down to shoestrings, cleanliness is a very big thing. So I would suggest that we hold off on approving this one until you can bring us a report on how they're going to be back forward and what you and the town are planning to do.
I can speak to some of the technical issues that we run into. For instance, with custodial chemical supplies relative to cleanliness, in the case of cleaning schools, the requirements relative to our application with children is different. And from a quality standpoint, we've taken the position of utilizing environmentally friendly products, so we don't have an issue with discomfort for the kids in the classrooms. Whereas your standard would be a higher threshold for people working in a public works environment. They wouldn't be as concerned with odors and some of those things. It's a different workplace environment.
I'm not speaking about the Public Works building. I would think that they would want to follow the same procedures in Town Hall, where citizens go in and out, and they would have to supply for that. I wasn't speaking about Public Works building down on Tower Hill Road. I was speaking in general. And we are going to have to get some of these things together if we're going to consolidate. And I would hate to be forced, like I'm forced to pay $4.15 for gas, and we sit here and do all of these things. Let's be practical about things.
In the past, the school committee's made decisions, like I can think back to policies where we wanted to hold on to items where we could determine whether it was worthy of disposal, those types of things. While the intentions might be good, I don't want to create a situation where we might not be able to buy supplies or do the job that we have to do every day. I think that we can probably do both and allow this to go through, but also start to look at how we can economize.
Larry, then Mel.
Mel, I think your thoughts and your concerns and suggestions are great, but I can honestly speak to them and say that we have had discussions around purchasing these items, consolidating the purchases of these items in bulk with the town at a reduced cost. And we've also discussed what's the name of the state? NPA, purchasing the items from approved vendors. And I agree with Mr. Draper. I think currently this is probably the best way for us to go, and there would be little or no savings involved at all if we took another direction at this point. But your point's well made and well taken, and it is something that we've discussed in consolidation, and those options we're continuing to explore as well to see what savings, if any, can be attained through that bulk purchasing.
wouldn't it have been nice to not to have to waste the time on this conversation had we been informed of those things?
I apologize, and I think the intentions of the Consolidation Subcommittee by forwarding the minutes of all our meetings to the town council members and the school committee members to be able to communicate what exactly is happening in that subcommittee. And I know in the near future, we're looking to do a presentation to both council and school committee members, updating where we've been, where we're going. So,
There's no other conversation. I'll motion to approve D2.
second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. E1. We exempted all of E.
That was Mel.
Mel?
E1 personnel items, we want to take that first, approve.
Do you have, you exempted that, Mel?
Well, that was a colossal mistake on my part.
Are there any,
If there's no discussion on that, I'll make a motion to approve all of E, minus E4, which has been removed from the agenda.
second? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
That holds. Let the minutes
Okay,
reflect.
and we'll get to G, Administrator's Contract Approval and Related GCB Benefit Policy. Who exempted that? Harry?
I exempted G. I know there's many questions from myself and other committee members as well, and I'm sure the community as well, and I think it's a topic that we need to have a discussion on. So I would ask, I think I would suggest the place to begin, if there are no objections, if the administration can, I guess, begin to present.
The contracts that we're going to be discussing were contracts based on aligning 3 or 4 different policies. People who are not covered by a contract, like the teacher's contract or the support group contract or maintenance and that sort of thing, this policy, the policies that have been consolidated, would take it, and now by virtue of those policies and then the contracts are written in such a way that anyone who's not covered by a collective bargaining unit contract would be addressed here. So the 3 different groups, it would be directors, supervisors, and principals. Those are the 3 categories of people. Do you want me to start?
I'm just I apologize for interrupting. I'm just realizing we discussed that I think most, if not all, of the contracts contain language that refer to the GCB policy, and I think it may be better if we discuss the GCB policy first. And
You have to agree to pull that up.
I think, do you agree with that?
I would agree.
Because I think if we approve the contracts prior to approving the policy, it's going to...
They're very much connected.
Yeah. So I apologize. So I would motion to move to the GCB policy agenda item, so we can cover that and then enter into the contract discussion.
A second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Motion passes, and we're looking at the GCB benefit policy.
Right, and that you may just want to go through.
I apologize. I didn't
Ask-
cover all of those.
Sorry, I would have gone.
Kim, this policy was, this draft policy comes from the policy subcommittee?
Right.
I don't know if you wanted to speak to it first.
Sure. This is not
while this policy is basically new, it does not fall under the new policy categories because what we have done is we have taken 3 old policies and we have put them together. This came about a year and a half ago when Bill Daly worked for us. He said to our policy committee, we have a teacher's contract that governs what the teacher's benefits. We have a paraprofessionals contract, which governs the paraprofessionals and their contract, and their benefits, their pay. That includes cafeteria, that includes our staff workers. We have, in the teacher's contract, we have coaches' pay and what they're going to, and he said, but we need to revise what we have for our administrators and for our supervisors and for our principals. And actually, why he asked us to take a look at these policies was that we had a couple people in the district who didn't fall under any of those categories. And so Bill saw that as a problem. He wanted those people put in a category. So that was the first question he came and he asked our committee was, where would you put these people that they would make sure we understand what benefits they had? And we actually had some questions in the beginning of the year because we had some staff who weren't under a teacher contracts, and so we didn't know where to put them and what their benefits were. So, a year and a half, we have brought this policy to you a couple of times, trying to figure out where we wanted to go. And along the way, one of the things we did is we said, why are we trying to have different types of personal days? Why are we trying to have different types of bereavement leave where one group has it, another group doesn't? And we said, this should be the same for everybody who's in our district. So we looked at the teacher's contract, and we said, well, what do we give our teachers? And we said, well, our teachers get 2 personal days. That's what we should give everybody. So that was one of the things we changed into the policy. We looked at our teachers' bereavement policy, and we said, oh, that's a good policy. So we gave it to everyone. We looked at our family illness policy. We put that in here for everyone. We went through and we said, what are paid holidays that we have? Because that had varied among some of the staff, and that not everybody had off the day after Thanksgiving. And so we said, well, everybody should have the same. We looked at our sick leave. Not every group had a participation in the sick leave bank. So we said, well, everybody should have that. We looked at our health insurance, and we said, obviously everybody is under there, and it should be the same as the teacher's contract with the same sort of copay. We looked at the retirement. Retirement is basically statutorial, in that Rhode Island state statute says that this is what your different groups are supposed to get by statute. And so we did put one group in there. The other people, because it is statute, we don't need to write every Rhode Island law into our policy. We, along the way, we talked to Mary Ann Carroll about this policy and saying, look at the language, what do you think? She suggested that because of our budgetary concerns, that some of the things we want to change for our professional and our tuition and our seminars and workshops, instead of making those shall, that everybody is automatically reimbursed, that we make that a may, based on do we have the budget and does it relate to the person's work environment or work responsibilities, and we get the superintendent approval to make that. So that was some of the changes we did there. We knew when we started this whole policy out that we needed to make changes to the travel and mileage, that had been a problem in the past. And so we actually had a citizen who made the suggestion of just saying, well, why don't you go by the IRS mileage rate? And we said, yes, why don't we do that? And the citizen also suggested that we make the mileage rate such that you simply would go in and say, I am going from North Kingstown to Providence. Now, if I stop along the way and have a meal, that doesn't count. It is not counted in the mileage because we count the straight shot. It doesn't mean the person can't. That's a different issue, but they don't get reimbursed for the mileage as to how we have it here. And Mr. Horn was kind enough to provide us with a set mileage chart that he says, hey, if you're going from Fishing Cove to Hamilton, this is the mileage.
that we calculate. So don't tell me it's some other mileage. We have a specific calculation to do. So, that was how we got to this policy. It has taken us a long time, and there have been many bumps in the road. We also made the suggestion of changing vacation, because one of the things we looked at is before everyone got an automatic 20 days. So, now I'll go through, I've told you some of the things why we made them the same, and why we changed them from 3 different policies to one policy we made like the teacher. Now I'll
Tell you where some of the things are different. The vacation is different.
and that we used to have that everybody,
The day they came in, got 20 days vacation. And one of the things we talked to Mr. Cahoon and some other of the supervisors, and they said, this can be a problem in that somebody can ask for vacation right up front. And so we said, a new person. So we said, okay, we think that instead of doing that, that we'll have, if you have 0 to 3 years, you'll receive 10 days paid vacation. And for all of them, we say, oh, and by the way, you can't take these vacation after day 1. You have a waiting period. We said if you're in years 4 to 6, then you get 15 days paid vacation. And if you're in 6 or more years, then you can get your full 20 days. We also changed our accrual, because one of the things we were worried about is that in operating in the budget that we have, is that before, when people accrued their vacation days, they could ask for them later to be paid for their vacation days. So we can't really take away the accrued vacation time that people already have. So what our suggestion is that we are asking people over the next 3 years to use the accrued vacation days. And we're saying that then at the end of 3 years, our suggestion is that they can receive compensation at the rate of when they accrue them. So in year 1, your vacation, and I'm just going to make up a number, your vacation was worth $100 total. In year 3, it may be worth $125. You don't get paid $125, you get paid at the rate when that extra vacation was accrued. The other suggestion is that after July 1st, 2008, that you use the vacation that you have. And one of our reasoning for that was that we want people to take vacation. We know this is a tough job, and so we're trying to encourage people to take a break and to get away from the school committee and all of us here. There are special times that we realize that that's not always possible, and so we do allow a clause in there that if there is some reason that somebody really did worked all the time and was not able to take their vacation days, that we do give that this superintendent may in some cases approve. Like I said, paid holidays aren't any different. The personnel benefit retirement plan, the whole reason that we have in this this section of having 10 years, and this is under 4B, is that this is a clause that was in before that people were already granted. So again, there are certain things that we knew we couldn't necessarily take away from people, so we kept it in here for the people who have been here. It is not something that you get if you start working as of, if we adopted this policy tonight and you started working for us tomorrow, you would not get 4B. And so that was a couple of things that we did do, is we said, as of a certain date, you don't get some of the benefits that people got before. So that's the long explanation. You can see on the front, this covers everybody who wasn't under the teacher's contract, who isn't under the para's contract, or anything else. And so that was our thinking, that these people need to have a place. We need to decide what their benefits are.
Madam Chairman, before we continue, I want to make sure everybody is looking at the new policy that was on your desk tonight, not the one that's in your packet.
This should be the one that has 6-9 down at the bottom. We found we worked with probably 20 different copies, so you have
6-9 was with the information that you got this evening. 6-4 was in your packet, and we made a last-minute change to it on, I think, Thursday or Friday.
7. Where's my red book?
This one here.
Right. because we took something out of 6.4 that now is not in 6.9.
Just a
This is the first,
couple of quick comments.
Yes, that's it.
this is the first time we have them approved.
Kim,
Yes.
thank you to you and the policy subcommittee for pulling numerous policies together and condensing them into one policy. It was quite confusing prior to that, to look back and forth between the separate policies. Just a couple questions and concerns that I have. Page 2, at the top, under general, starts, all non-unit personnel shall work 52 weeks per year. That's the end of the sentence. What I would suggest is that we strike that line, that entire line from the policy, because as I said, the contracts that we will be reviewing refer to this policy. In numerous different areas of the contracts, they refer to this policy for guidance. So if we keep that line in the policy, it prohibits any flexibility within the contracts. Whether we choose to go with that 52 weeks per year, obviously we can't go with more, but we may choose to go with less. So by keeping that line in the policy, it restricts the committee, restricts the administration from having any flexibility for less than 52 weeks per year. So by striking that line from this policy, they'll increase the flexibility of the committee and the management and how they manage and implement those contracts. So I'll make that in the form of a motion to strike that line from the policy.
I second that motion. Get that straightened out before we vote.
And again, that's not necessarily saying we really will not reduce contracts from 52 years. That's gives the committee and the administration the flexibility to have those discussions, but by keeping this line in the policy, it eliminates that. We can cover the work schedule within each contract individually.
Sorry, April. I can see as we go into year 2 and year 3 of great financial stress that we're going to be in desperate need of these options. So I would highly recommend that we need to remain as flexible as possible.
Just wondering if you're taking that particular line out, recommending that, then how that has an impact down through, like, entitlement in terms of, working 50 or more weeks, etc., versus if you were to look at some non-unit personnel that you wanted to change their work year, that you would do that with making amendments to the policy as well as their contract.
Well, you could still make individual decisions on the contracts, because you could state that in somebody's contract, and I believe the ones we have here, we do have the working days as to how they are. So I can see what you're saying, Mr. Cerisi, that we are not necessarily changing anything in the contracts, because we are recommending that all these people on the list be given some sort of a contract, and so it would specifically be written into the contract as to what it was. I hesitate because I like to think these things out, and because we have gotten in trouble before when we have made policy decisions at the table. So that's the reason I'm doing the sucking of teeth, Mr. Cerisi. It's not necessarily that trying to run through my mind all the different scenarios as to is this a good idea or not.
Yeah. No, I certainly understand the thought process, and again, my thought process is to give the committee and the administration flexibility in each contract, not to limit the parameters of the work schedule in each contract because we're bound by a policy that's cited throughout each contract.
may I offer suggested language, because Kim and I went through this 100 times, but all non-unit personnel's work year shall be determined on an individual basis. That'll give you flexibility going into next year, the following year, whenever, if there are positions where they're going to be part-time or something like that. That gives you flexibility, because then when you go down to the rest of the policy, Kim, you talk about if you're working 50 or more weeks, then this, so we're implying later on that somebody could only be working 50 weeks or 35 weeks. So you may want to say, shall be determined on an individual basis, and that gives you the flexibility in the policy, and then your contract can then govern how many weeks somebody actually works.
I'll withdraw my motion if that makes things easier for the committee.
I'll withdraw my second, and I will have a question for the
Just a
attorney.
minute, Mel, hold on. Doug?
Thank you. I think maybe, Marion, you can help me here. I'm just kind of thinking as we go here, but it looks like we're trying to define a year, and in the contract, we do that by saying first day of July, 30th day of June. If we, perhaps in the policy, define the year without defining the day requirement within that, that'll give you the umbrella to say that. So we'll define a year as being starting on this date and ending that date, and that the contracts can define what the workload will look like in between there. And that way the policy would be aligned over the top, but would give you the flexibility to change it if you needed to. But I'm not a lawyer, so I'm not sure.
Again, this is just a general statement we made, I think, at the beginning of the policy. Kim, correct me if I'm wrong, just to kind of like generally say, okay, now we have people working, we had to come up with some this is our introductory paragraph. It really doesn't mean anything. It's an introduction saying that, this is the work year and that everything else is governed. So rather than get into the number of weeks, in the event that there are going to be people at some point who are going to work for less, they're going to be determined on an individual basis. In other words, an assistant director of special ed may not work 52 weeks once that person comes in. You don't know that right now. So maybe if you left it individual, then that would give you the flexibility.
Great. Okay, Mel?
I was just going to insist he made the motion and she gave the suggestion as to where we stand, and I was going to ask that we continue with this language rather than discuss it, because our attorney has given us good points for that, and we will have to be using part-time personnel in various departments. So Harry, you withdrew your motion, and I withdraw my second. If you care to make another.
Yeah, I would make another motion at this time that to strike that sentence, and a new sentence would read, all non-unit personnel work schedule shall be determined by each individual contract?
No, or just all non-unit personnel's work year shall be determined on an individual basis. And then when you do
Shall
the
be
contracts...
determined on individual basis.
Right.
Have a second for that?
I second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes.
Well, if there isn't any further discussion, I'd like to make a motion that we approve GCB.
There's one typo. If you go to 2, accrual, you go to 2B2, accrual, where it's bold, I think the end should say, beginning July 1st, 2008, newly accrued vacation days will follow section 2B2C, not 3B2C.
Oh,
Yep.
yes, and that was a change because we took out other language. Yes, I did make that on my copy at home, but, sorry, Karen, I didn't.
That's right here. 2B.
Okay.
Larry?
Just continuing on with the discussion on the policy. Page 2 on the vacations. B2, accrual. The sentences that are in bold print, I certainly support allowing employees to have the flexibility to discharge the vacation time that they've previously occurred. However, my concern is that we're allowing 3 years of time to use that vacation time, which I think is tremendous amount of leeway and flexibility in allowing a 3-year period to use the vacation time.
Eric, do you want me to tell you why we suggested that? Our thought was we weren't ready to pay out the accrued vacation time this year nor next year. So by getting within 3 years, that will give us a longer space of time that because of the budget crisis we're in, we didn't want to have it come up right now that we have to pay out.
I support the 3-year term. I think that long term is an excellent idea. However, at the end of that 3-year term, I think 3 years is an awful long time to allow employees to use that vacation time, plenty of time. And then at the end of the 3 years, hopefully our budget situation is better than it is today, but it's highly doubtful. We don't know where we're going to be 3 years from now, and we may be setting ourselves up to write out some checks to pay off this vacation time that we don't necessarily have the funds to do. So I think in all fairness, they should be allowed to discharge their vacation time. I think they should be allowed to have that 3-year period to do it. But I would support at the end of the 3-year vacation, at the end of the 3-year period, if vacation time has not been used at that point, that they would either lose the unused vacation time. They would lose the unused vacation time. I think 3 years is a very fair period of time to allow them to use that vacation time, and we don't run the risk of the budget impact of paying out to employees for unused vacation time at the end of that 3-year period.
Doug?
Yeah, this language is, in my opinion, is a little bit problematic in this fashion, that you're setting up a programmed unfunded liability. That you don't know what that number will be at the end, and you could start writing checks. We don't know what they are. I understand the concern about the budget, but at the end of those 3 years, you could be left with a pretty significant bill. I think that we don't know how to plan for and you don't know how to cover. This benefit is not unlike what we went through last year in the budget when we pay retirements or you had a discharge or something else that